before learning Selenium, we need to answer ourselves for two questions. One is what is Selenium? Second is why Selenium? So let me start with what part first. So what is Selenium? Selenium, in simple words, Selenium is a test automation tool for web-based applications. So then I will answer why Selenium. Nowadays, all the products are moving towards cloud platform. So they are preferring web-based applications rather than window-based applications. So if you build a web-based application, then you need a testing framework to assess the quality of your product. So where Selenium came into picture. And one more question will come into our mind is the Selenium only tool available for web-based automation? No, answer is no. Then why we are preferring Selenium? Why we are learning Selenium? One of the most popular tools available in the market is for web-based automation is QTP. So if you compare QTP with Selenium, QTP is a licensed tool, whereas Selenium is a free source. So you need not to pay any money for Selenium. And one more thing, it is preferred over QTP because of the browser coverage matrix. It is supporting many browsers. Most of the popular browsers in the current market is supported by Selenium, and it supports across many platforms like Windows, Linux, Mac. These all platforms Selenium will support. So these are the main advantages of the Selenium. That's why many people are preferring Selenium. It's a free source. That's the main advantage of the Selenium. And one more thing, if you take a QTP tool, you need to learn VB scripting. So through VB scripting only you can automate your test cases. But in case of Selenium, it is supporting many programming languages like Java, Ruby, Python, C#, many programming languages is supporting. So in which language you are comfortable, you can go ahead and you can write your test case. So that is one more advantage of the Selenium. So that's why we are planning to learn Selenium. Yeah, and these are the features of the Selenium. It works on every system where JavaScript is supported. So why the system has to support JavaScript to work with Selenium is Selenium is completely built upon front-end technologies like JavaScript, HTML and frames. So in whatever system JavaScript is supported, on all the systems you can work with Selenium. And it can simulate a user navigating through pages and then assert for specific marks on the page. So whatever you do on a web page, you can do it through Selenium. All the click operations you can perform, and you can refresh the pages, everything. You can handle the pop-up windows. These kind of operations you can do it through Selenium. And yeah, Selenium IDE is a plugin to Firefox to record and playback tests. Selenium IDE is one of the components of the Selenium. We will discuss much on it in the later session, so I'm skipping it for now. And you can then export the recorded test in most of the languages. As we discussed earlier, it is supporting many languages like Java, C#, Perl, Ruby, etc. And this point also we discussed already. That is, it is supporting many other platforms like Windows, Linux, Mac. It is supporting. This table depicts the supported browsers and operating systems for both Selenium IDE and RC. If you look at it, you can have a quick view of the supported browsers for Selenium. Yeah. Then we will discuss on components of the Selenium. So these are the main 4 components of the Selenium. In this presentation, I am covering only Selenium 1.0. So these are the main 4 components of the Selenium. First one is Selenium core, second is Selenium IDE, third is Selenium remote control, fourth is Selenium grid. Okay. So
what is the Selenium 1.2?
Come again?
What is Selenium 1.2?
1 point?
You said 1.0. You'll be talking only about
Yeah,
Selenium.
yeah. This is a first version of the Selenium.
Okay. So what is the one that's being used in the market right now?
Currently, most of them are moving towards Selenium 2.0. After this presentation, I have one more presentation. In that, I will explain more about Selenium 2.0.
Oh, okay, that's fine.
Yeah, this is all about Selenium 1.0. After this presentation, we will discuss on Selenium 2.0 also. Okay?
Oh, okay, sounds good. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. So this is Selenium core. I listed down all the key features of the Selenium core here. Selenium core is a functional testing tool for web application. It tests run directly in the browser. It can run all the test cases in the browser itself. As we discussed earlier, it is implemented entirely with browser technology. JavaScript, HTML frames, it utilized to build that Selenium core. Works by looking at the DOM. DOM I will explain what does it mean by DOM in the later session. So to identify the elements, it will use DOM structure. So these all are the key features of the Selenium core, but Selenium core is already deprecated by Selenium. Currently, most of them are using Selenium, either Selenium RC or Selenium WebDriver. So I don't want to discuss much on Selenium core. I just placed a slide for it to tell you the all key features of the Selenium core. But we are not all using Selenium core anymore, so I don't want to discuss much on it. So next one is Selenium IDE. Selenium IDE is a record and play tool, and it available for us as an add-on in Firefox. The main limitation of Selenium IDE is it supports only Firefox browser. It is available only with Firefox browser. You can't test any test case using Selenium IDE in other browsers like Chrome, IE, Safari, etc. You can test all your test cases only in Firefox. And one more disadvantage is it's a record and play tool, right? There is no programming. So if the UI changes, UI means the user interface of the product changes, then you need to record the test case again. You can't modify it. In case of programming, you can simply edit the steps, right? But it's really difficult to edit the test case in case of Selenium IDE. So this is the installation procedure. You need to download that plugin and you need to install it. Then it will be available. This slide will show you the plugin, Selenium IDE plugin. So let me show you how Selenium IDE works. It's very simple. Yeah. If you install Selenium IDE, it will be available as a plugin. So if you want to record a test case using Selenium IDE, first you need to click on this icon. Then it will launch the Selenium IDE interface. So this is called record button. By default, it will be enabled. If you click on that icon, then it will be enabled. So, hello?
Yeah, I'm able to hear you. Go ahead.
Yeah. So, I will record a simple test case for you and we will show you how will it work. So, I am opening a browser here. Then I am clicking on a link. Then I am clicking on a radio button. I am changing the select box value to Selenium RC. And I am clicking on this button. So this will be added, some text will be added here. So I perform several actions, right? All actions are recorded here. Like I opened a browser, then I clicked on a link and I waited till it loads next page. Then I clicked on a radio button. In the select box I have chosen some value. Then I clicked on another button. So all the actions are recorded here. So after record, if you can run it a number of times. So why Selenium IDE will be used is, if you want to test your platform, you need to record whatever test cases you have whatever the test case you need to validate before release your product, and you can run those test cases for every release. But the main limitation is you can validate your product only with Firefox browser. It is not supported for other browsers. That is the limitation of the Selenium IDE. But in Firefox you can validate your test cases. So I am opening a new tab here and I am running the test case whatever I have recorded. See, it is opening the browser, it is clicking on the link, then it clicked on the radio button, then it has chosen Selenium RC as the select box value, then it clicked on this button. That's where the text is getting added. I have been added with time out. So if the test case is getting passed, then it will come in green color. That means test case is passed. You can see the results here. Runs 1, failures are 0. So after recording the test case, using these menu options, you can save the test case, you can export the test case. So like that you can work with Selenium IDE. We will discuss more on Selenium IDE in our course content. Since it is a demo part, I am concluding it here itself. So this is all about Selenium IDE.
So all those 4 components, which one is widely used?
In all those components, currently most of the people are using Selenium IDE. No, most of the people are currently using Selenium WebDriver.
WebDriver, okay.
Yeah, it is. It will come under Selenium 2.0. At the end of the session, I will explain you why people are giving more importance to Selenium WebDriver. Okay.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah, as I told you, Selenium IDE, the main limitations of Selenium IDE are it is supported only for Firefox. So if you record all your test cases, you can run it only on Firefox, right? That's why many people are not using Selenium IDE.
Okay.
Because you need to assess the quality of your product across many browsers. Because you don't guarantee, right, your customer will use only Firefox. You need to test it on Chrome, you need to test it on IE, you need to test it on Safari. That's why Selenium IDE is not all used. But the main purpose of Selenium IDE is why we introduced Selenium IDE in our course content is for a beginner it's really difficult to write his own identifiers, because if you are performing some operations on a new UI, you need to find out the elements. So to find out the elements, you need some locators. As a beginner, it's really difficult to write these locators by your own. Since Selenium IDE is a record and play tool, using that it will provide you all the locators. If you record your test, it will provide you all the locators like this. You can use these locators in Selenium RC and WebDriver. That's why you need to learn Selenium IDE. Many people are not all using Selenium IDE right now to write the test cases, but they will use it to implement the locators for your RC and WebDriver programming. So I will explain you what does it mean by locator also. In the next slides I will explain you. Okay. Yeah, this is Selenium RC. Selenium RC means Selenium Remote Control. Selenium Remote Control is a server written in Java that accepts commands for browser via HTTP. So what will it do is you can write your test case in any one of the languages which is supported by Selenium, like Java, Ruby, Python. In any language you can write. It will take that and it will fire the HTTP request to perform the actions on top of the browser using its Selenium core engine. So components of Selenium RC are Selenium server and client libraries. So in Selenium RC, you don't directly talk with the browser. There is a server named Selenium server which will act as intermediator in between your client code and the browser. So whatever the commands you give, it will understand, it will fire corresponding HTTP requests on top of the browser and it will do the actions for you. So these are the cool features of the RC. This is multi-platform support and multi-platform support, that is it supports Windows, Linux, Mac, and multi-browser support, that is it supports IE, Firefox, Safari, Netscape, and multi-programming language support, that is C#, Java, Ruby, Python, and XPath, HTML, ID, DOM, CSS, selector are the identifiers what I have talked earlier, and it supports Ajax calls, proxy injection mode is there. So these are the cool features of the RC. Now we'll have a look at object locator. So what does it mean by locator? So what are all the actions we can perform in a browser? So if I open my Facebook, so if I want to log in into my Facebook account, what I supposed to do? I need to do 3 actions. First thing is I need to enter my email address here. Second thing is I need to enter my password here. Then I need to click on a login button. So Facebook login action consists of mainly 3 steps. One is entering the email, second step is entering the password, third step is clicking on the login button. So here I am entering the email, but I should tell Selenium where to enter. I need to enter here, right? So there should be some locator to identify the element. So if you see here, this element has an ID named email. This element has a name named email. So using one of those, we can identify the element. We will provide the text there. These are called object locators or element locators. Element locators are there to identify the element on the web page. So this button is an element, this checkbox is an element, this password text box is an element, this email text box is an element. So our web page consists of many elements. In all those elements you need to pick up one element and you need to perform some operation there. If it is a text box, you need to enter some text there. If it is a button, you need to click on that button. So before performing an action on top of an element, you need to find it. So to identify an element within the web page, you need element locators. Okay?
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. These are the several object locators available in Selenium RC. First one is HTML ID. So that is, you can identify the element by ID. As I told you earlier, for this element ID is the email. So by providing ID equal to email, you can identify this element on the web page.
Okay.
Second thing is XPath. You can write an XPath. If you don't have an option of ID, you can write an XPath to identify the element. So how to build an XPath to identify the element, these and all we will discuss later, because it's a demo session, I don't want to discuss much on it.
Okay.
And third option available is link. So by giving some text pattern, you can identify the element. So these are the several ways to identify the element on top of a web page. So we will discuss on each object locator in our course content. So as I told you earlier, for a beginner it's really difficult to implement his own locator to identify the elements. So to help them, there are several tools available in the market to write these element locators. So these are the add-ons available in the market for us: XPather, XPath Checker, Firebug. So these kind of plugins you can utilize to identify the locator part. It will give you the XPath for an element, it will provide you an ID of the element, everything it will be provided by locator tools. So how to use these locator tools we can discuss in our course content. And Selenium ID I have already shown you. These are the features of the Selenium IDE. It's a Firefox extension, it's a recorder tool, easy record and playback, So these are the features of the Selenium IDE. So the fourth component we have here is Selenium Grid. So the purpose of Selenium Grid is it allows you to run your test on different missions against different browsers in parallel. So see, in Selenium RC you can write your test case and you can run it on a browser. At a time you can run it only on one browser. But in Selenium Grid what will happen is you can attach multiple systems to a hub and you can run multiple tests in multiple browsers in parallel. Like if you have 10 systems available, you will run 10 Selenium RC servers on those systems and you will make one of the server as the hub. Hub will act as the master and remaining all systems will act as the slave. So you will give commands to the hub. So this hub will give commands to the remaining 9 slaves. So if you give some command, it will pick it up and it will give that command to one of those slaves which is currently available, it will give. So if you want to run multiple tests on different missions against different browsers, you will go ahead with Selenium Grid. So simple words, Selenium Grid supports distributed test execution. With Selenium Grid, one server acts as a hub. As I explained earlier, in all the servers, one server acts as a hub, remaining will all act as the slaves. So by giving commands to the hub, you can run multiple tests at a time across different browsers. These are the advantages and limitations of the Selenium. Advantages are customized defect reporting. Second one is finding defects missed by manual testing. So in manual testing is really difficult, right? If I ask you to repeat the same things again and again, you will be annoyed and you might miss few things. But tools are not like human beings. So whatever you write, it will run it a number of times. You don't skip even a single line of statement. And it support for agile and extreme development methodologies. Frequent regression testing, like for every release you can run these test cases and you can look at the report. And rapid feedback to developer. When compared to manual testing, you can run these test cases quite quicker. So if a manual tester takes 30 minutes of time, this Selenium will take just 5 minutes to run all these test cases and give you the report. The limitation is if the application user interface will change considerably in near future, then any automation might need to be rewritten anyway. Yeah, as I told you earlier, if the user interfaces changes, that means if ID changes, if the name changes, definitely you can't find out that element by using the old identifier. So for suppose, I will tell you one of the example for this. So here if you see for this element ID is email. So I have written a test case by using this ID equal to email as my locator. After some time this ID got changed to some FSJDJLD, some name they have given. So by using the old locator I can't identify the element, right? Definitely the test case will fail. That is the major limitation of the Selenium. If your UI changes, then you should change your test case.
So this is not for ID, it is for everything, every test case?
Come again, I didn't get you.
So if the UI changes, it's not just IDE, even for Selenium core, you have to change.
Yeah. For anything, you need to change the test case. But the thing is, when compared to changing the script in Selenium IDE, it's quite easy to change the script in Selenium RC, because Selenium RC and in Selenium WebDriver, it's a simple Java program.
Okay.
But in Selenium IDE, it's a record and play, right? So it's really difficult to edit the test case. But in case of Selenium RC and WebDriver, it's you are quite comfortable to modify the test case.
Okay.
Okay, did you get it?
Yep. Good.
Yeah.
So Selenium Grid, you don't really, I mean, you use Selenium Grid only when you have multiple RCs, correct?
Yeah. If you want to run multiple test cases at a time, you will make one of the Selenium RC as the grid and you will make all other as the slaves.
So one of the RC as a grid or a hub?
No, one of the RC as the hub. That is the feature of grid. One of the RC as the hub and remaining will act as the slaves. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. And how to make one of the RC as the hub also I will explain later, because there is a command to start the Selenium server. To start the server itself, we will provide the role as the hub for one of the RC server, and we will make all other as the slaves by providing their roles. Okay.
Okay.
These kind of things we will discuss later in our course content itself.
Sure.
Yeah, this is the conclusion for Selenium. Most of the applications these days are web-based. Test automation is used more frequently. Test automation uses software tools to run repeatable tests. Selenium acts as a tool to do test automation. Components include IDE, RC, and grid. This core engine consists of all JavaScript libraries. This is all about Selenium. So why we are preferring Selenium is mainly it is a free source. That's why many product-based companies are building their test frameworks on top of Selenium. In our company, they used a tool called Tilric. Its license cost is around 3 lakhs. So for buying 40 licenses, they paid around 1 crore, I guess. Still, the licenses are not enough to test the product, because we are around 1,000 developers are there in Pega and only 40 licenses are available. But in case of Selenium, it's a free tool, right? If you develop a framework, you can give it to all your employees. Everyone can test their features, whatever they have developed. So that's why many companies are preferring Selenium. It's a free tool.
Okay.
So now let me continue with Selenium 2 part, automating with Selenium 2. So first give me WebDriver introduction for you first. So WebDriver is a different way of automating the browser. So here we will create browser specific driver to control the browser directly. Have to do this for each browser. So what does it mean by creating driver for browser specific means? For Firefox you will create a Firefox driver. For Chrome you will create a Chrome driver. So like that many drivers are available. So why we are creating drivers for each browser is, in Selenium RC the main problem is every operation we are doing on top of browser will be done by Selenium core engine, which is developed by Selenium. But in Selenium WebDriver, they are contacting with the browser directly. They can directly talk with the browser. They are utilizing the native APIs of the browser. For performing any manual action on top of the browser, browsers will provide some native APIs. In Selenium RC, he didn't utilize the native APIs provided by browser. He has his own implementations. Based on his implementations, he is doing all those actions. But in Selenium WebDriver, he is completely relying on the native APIs provided by browser itself. That's why when compared to Selenium RC API, Selenium WebDriver APIs are more reliable. Okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah. Second point is object-oriented API.
I had a question. So the in the initial Selenium, why does the client does not talk to the browser?
Come again? I didn't get you.
So you said that the client does not talk to the browser, right, in the earlier version?
Yeah. There is a Selenium core engine in between.
Okay.
Using this Selenium core engine, like you will give some command, right?
Mm-hmm.
So for that command, they will write their own script and they will fire it on the browser. That script they will fire it.
Okay.
But in Selenium WebDriver, they will directly utilize the native APIs of the browser. What does it mean is, to perform a click, there is an API called click in the browser itself. If you are directly calling that API, that is called directly contacting the browser. So to perform the click, you have some implementation. So if you don't use the implementation of the browser, if you write that implementation by your own, and if you are firing that, if you are running that script by your own, that is called that will come under Selenium RC part. There in Selenium RC, they are not utilizing the APIs given by the browser for the test automation. They have written their own scripts and they are firing their scripts on top of the browser. That's why in Selenium RC, two browsers will be launched. In the first browser, they will dump all their scripts. They will script there. They will dump their script engine there. Using that script engine, they will perform all these operations.
Okay.
But in Selenium WebDriver, only one browser will appear. So within that browser, all the native APIs will be available from the browser side itself. So they will utilize those APIs. So, and second point is object-oriented API. So what does it mean by object-oriented is, so in Selenium RC, to perform an action, you need to provide identifiers again and again. In Selenium RC, there are each API will take the identifier. Like to perform a click operation, you need to provide an identifier. The API is like this: selenium.click, and you will provide the identifier. Then selenium.something clear, you will provide the identifier. So by using the identifier, he will identify the element, he will perform the operation. In the second statement also, by using the identifier, he will find the element, he will perform the operation. So if you want to do more than one operation on top of the element, then also you need to provide the identifier 2 times. That is the bad implementation. So in the first statement itself, you are identifying the element, but you are not returning it. For the second operation also, you are identifying the element. So if you want to do 10 operations on top of a single element, you need to identify the element 10 times and then you are doing the operations. That is the bad implementation in Selenium RC. But in case of WebDriver, he will identify the element first and he will return you. It will return you a web element. On top of the web element, you can do what all the operations you want to do. So if you want to do 10 operations on top of an element in Selenium WebDriver, you will identify the element only once and you will do all the 10 operations. That's the beauty of Selenium WebDriver. And it doesn't need a real browser, no JavaScript limitations, no need for a server. So these are the cool features of the Selenium WebDriver. So there are no limitations in case of JavaScript. So what does it mean by Selenium 2? So we have WebDriver, right? WebDriver has his own features, like it is completely relying on the browser native API, and Selenium 1.0 has several features. So they clubbed everything and they made that Selenium 2.0. The two projects got merged and it became Selenium 2.0. So these are the features: large browser support and no JavaScript limitations, no server, old APIs are still available and new APIs are becoming available. So in automating with Selenium 2, there are two options available for us. One is WebDriver, second is WebDriver backed Selenium. So the main purpose of WebDriver is, who will go ahead with WebDriver is, if you are building a new framework using Selenium 2.0, then you can go ahead with WebDriver. But if you are an old customer of Selenium, that means if you build your framework on Selenium RC and if you want to migrate it from Selenium RC to WebDriver, you will go ahead with WebDriver backed Selenium. In WebDriver, only WebDriver APIs are available. In WebDriver backed Selenium, along with WebDriver API, you can get the APIs of Selenium 1.0 also. So it's very simple. If you are starting your project right now, you can directly go ahead with WebDriver. If you have already started and if you want to migrate from RC to WebDriver, then go ahead with WebDriver package Selenium. So as we discussed in Selenium RC, here also several locators are available. These are the locator strategies available in Selenium WebDriver. There are many options. When compared to RC, they have increased the options here. So using all these options, you can identify the element or object, whatever you call, you can identify it. So you can identify it by ID, you can identify it by name, you can identify it by tag, you can identify it by class name, CSS selector, XPath, link test, partial link test. These are all the several options available to identify the element on top of a browser. So for page interactions, you can use these APIs like send keys, submit, click. So using click API, you can click on a button. Using send keys API, you can enter some text into a text box. There are many APIs available in WebDriver. Why I am mentioning these two is we will do most of the operations using these two APIs. Like we will perform many button click operations, we will enter text, right? So that's why I placed these two APIs. These are the main APIs will be used in our custom frameworks. One is click, one is send keys. Send keys is used for send some text to the text box. Click is used to click on a button. And two other are there. So if you want to handle pop-up windows or if you have several frames in your UI, then you can switch from one window to another window, or you can switch from one frame to another frame using the switch to API. So this will be used to handle the pop-up windows. And yeah, if you open some URL in browser and if you click on few links, then this history button will be enabled, and this what you call this back and forward buttons will be enabled. So if you want to do some actions using these buttons, then you can handle it in Selenium through these APIs. Using this navigation, you can do back operation, forward operation, and you can switch to an URL whatever you want. So if you want to perform these navigation operations on top of a browser, you can use this navigation of the web browser. So there are many other APIs are available to handle all the front-end actions we are doing. So I picked up few major actions we'll use in building custom frameworks and placed in my demo part. So that's it from my side. So do you have any questions for me?
No.
Are you quite clear with that?
Yep.
So have you heard about Selenium earlier?
Yes, I did. So I have a question for you.
Yeah.
How long would this training session be?